to invest early and often. Wish I had an emergency fund. Well, if you look, uh, typically people who have financially stable lifestyles with no catastrophic failures, pre-planning, advanced funding towards expected costs and expenses, and you know, good money management capabilities, they are prepared for most things, and other things they put it off until they put it into their budget. But there's always a scenario where there's an unexpected health risk. There's always the unexpected vehicle damage that needs to be taken care of, a flat tire, a blown head gasket, or something like that. But like you buy your cars out of the auction, so you would buy one out of the auction. It wouldn't work out the way you want it to work out. You'd sell it at the auction and then go buy something else from the auction. So you don't have to really deal with vehicle repair. The method that you do things kind of circumvents certain unexpected things that people do experience when they're buying and keeping their things, owning a house, and certain wear and tear that's not covered with the health with the homeowner's insurance. That those types of repairs are things that you just have to either do without it or take extra money and put it towards that. If you know that this is something that needs to be done, preventative maintenance reduces a lot of the unexpected costs of life's emergencies. Your brakes go bad, but your brakes go bad over time. And you only have an emergency problem with brakes and rotors if you're not servicing your car regularly. So we have to understand that the average individual that does not prepare for the worst and then take their cash and put it on those things when the things go bad or after the things get too bad for them to ignore anymore, that's usually when it happens is when they don't have enough money to cover it. And that's when they have to find money to cover it. And that's when they have to have emergency funds. Also, people who don't live alone. I might be managing the situation correctly based on my expectations of how things are supposed to go, but the other person that I'd be living with could be making different decisions or having different experiences that I don't know about, where news to me would compel me to have to spend money on the other person. That's what happens when you have dependents. So parents have more unexpected costs based on decisions that they weren't aware of when those decisions have negative fallouts that catastrophically impacts the household. Like when your kid wrecks your car and now you're responsible for the car crash, stuff like that. Like I said, the old saying, plan for the worst and hope for the best. That's right. The roof or the sewer. Yeah, when the septic tank needs to be replaced, or when a tree falls through the roof, or if the shingles just need to be updated or something like that. You got a leaky roof, stuff like that. Then they sell their watches first, the jewelry and stuff. Well, yeah. Ideally, the first thing that happens is walk off to a pawn shop and pawn the things that you could do away with. Some people will leverage it to a pawn shop for fast cash so that they can take care of their thing with the expectation of going back to the pawn shop and getting that item back from the pawn shop. That doesn't always work out. He said, "What kid? 811." Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because I mean, if they did something that bad, it's like you might as well dig your own grave before I get back. Nowadays, though, uh, probably should dig up the garage and they, they'll be looking all over the backyard, but the garage was resurfaced. But we see the charts that show the magic of compound interest when people say invest early and invest often. When they say massive investments, like putting 80% of your wealth into an investment portfolio and then watching the money grow exponentially in an expedited fashion. But realistically, we can only put pennies on a dollar in when we're living from paycheck to paycheck. We're paying our bills first and taking the money left over and putting that towards investments. When we download the apps, we pick our ETFs and watch our balances grow with a ton of pride. And all of that is great. But the dangerous myth has crept in the world of personal finance. And it's setting a whole generation of investors up for failure. The myth is that your growing investment portfolio can also be your safety net. That if a real emergency strikes, you can just sell off a few shares to cover the cost. Now, this is, without a doubt, one of the most financially destructive ideas that you can believe. It's like building a beautiful skyscraper on a foundation of sand. It looks incredible from a distance, but the moment a storm rolls in, the whole thing is at risk of collapsing. Michael says, why work if you never pay yourself first? That is a key factor. The one of the reasons is because most individuals are born into the lifestyle of paying what you owe and spending more than you have and owing for what you did not have enough to pay for, which forces you to pay what you owe. So you spend so much of your life chasing income to pay off debt to the magnitude that you don't have anything left because you got advanced stuff that you couldn't afford. Zero down, interest payments later. That's how life is working right now. Get it right now, no money down. Get it right now, $0, 3 month trial period, and then exponential dollars per month. And you got it, you held it, you're using it, you're enjoying it, you don't want to let it go, and then the bill comes. Now you got to start paying for something that you can't afford to pay for. Shit, they offered me with Uber free month, and I was like, boss, I'll take it. It's free. Then when the month was up, cancel the membership because I ain't paying for that. I got a car, bro. I drive the $10 it takes for them to come get me and take me where I gotta go. It'll take me $1.50 to do the exact same route. Like, nah, that's okay. That it would for me to spend $10 in my own car to get me where they took me. I would have left my engine running all day to spend $6 worth of gas. They tripping. That's okay. I could. Like I said, take your 401k, pay the 10% loss. Not see, I'm gonna be talking about that because you shouldn't have to do that kind of stuff. The viewer's $3,000 car repair isn't just some sad one-off story. It's a preview of what happens when you build your financial life in the wrong order. I had a buddy of mine who he was a Uber driver, right? And he was making good money. Then he got a job in tech. So he had two jobs. Then he got strep throat. He thought he was going to be on the up and up this year, but he got strep throat. So then he had to take a month off from work. Then he went back to work. When he went back to work, they fired him off of his job. Well, they downsized, the company downsized, but he basically got fired off his job. So he went back to being an Uber driver. Then all of a sudden, on his Uber job, he got fired. So he goes back to the tech job. His position opened back up again. He goes back to the tech job. He's on the tech job, and just as soon as he gets settled into the tech job, he got COVID. So he's taking another month off from work. All of this happened inside of 12 months. This isn't a span of several years. This is just a sequence of unfortunate events. And I'm just looking at like, damn, if he had, so he's had about 3 months out of 12 where there was no satisfactory income coming in. And there's a decent quantity of Americans that have this type of lifestyle. And this is just regular chaos. This isn't what happens if his car crashes, what happens if his transmission needs to be replaced, what happens if one of his family members needs a medical emergency or something to that. What if he needs a medical emergency? None of that stuff took into effect. Just simply getting sick and employment fluctuations inside of a 12-month period keeps him in an unstable position, right? Now, in tonight's show, we're going to tear that myth apart about just throwing all of your money into your retirement and not having squat set aside for your emergency fund. He said, did he have an emergency fund? Hell, well, yeah, technically he did. He could live off of his family. But did he personally have an emergency fund? Hell no. He lived from check to check from the time he started until the time he finished. Family member died. Well, that's what would have happened if it was up to me. Because see, if you get one of them, you don't even got to get a $250,000 life insurance policy. You could get you like $100,000 policy, a $50,000 policy, and then if they kick the bucket, you got 50 grand, and then you can put that 50 grand in the stock option and let that 50 grand run you 20% every year. For some people, 50 grand is 1 year's income. All I'm saying is there's ways. There's ways. But we're going to expose the huge risk that you're taking by investing without a real dedicated cash emergency fund because you have different types of emergencies. You have the type of emergency that needs to be handled today. That means you have to have accessible capital today. There's something that has to be done this week. That means you have to be able to gain the money within the next 7 days. You have to get it done this month. That means that you got a couple of weeks to figure out where you're going to get the money from, whether it's going to be a loan or leveraging a stock portfolio or selling an item that you can get the cash by the time the deadline hits. Then you've got unexpected expenses that causes an increase in your overall monthly lifestyle that you don't have enough time to plan for, where you could, in fact, sell some of your portfolio or close out on an investment opportunity with enough time to put capital towards that. The emergency fund is supposed to be taking care of the first two or three situations. The stuff that has to be done today, within the next couple of days, the stuff that has to be done by the end of the week, over the next couple of weeks. Because if you had money in a portfolio, even if you're operating off ETFs, if you got to sell it and it takes 1 to 2 business days to clear, and then it takes 2 to 3 business days to clear the bank, that means that it's 5 days before it hits your bank account. If you have an emergency that has to be resolved in less than 5 days, you have to have money somewhere that you can access in less than 5 days. Now, one of the things I've been telling you guys about, because we can't really throw all of our money in a bank account because bank accounts suck. However, there is startup capital for most banks and credit unions, where some banks are having over 5% interest for the first $500, and some credit unions are having up to 7.25% interest for certain credit unions, where you can put $500 in each account and let it sit and get that guaranteed interest percentage per year, regardless of inflation. And if an emergency occurs, you can peel back that money and take care of an emergency right now. With online banking, you can spread your money out across 120 bank accounts and have $500 in each account. And that's going to be like 60 grand, which would cover a year's worth of living. And if you're getting 5 to 7%, averaging 6% interest between credit unions and bank accounts, that's a pretty decent return. While taxable, it is a pretty decent return. Where by far you would be able to take that capital and cover right now emergencies, because with online banking you can literally wire transfer money to yourself, ACH transfer it to yourself, take a decent chunk of it out of one account, and then move money from another place back to that primary account like a waterfall, making sure that you have all of the capital that you need accessible. You can shave the interest off of each one of those accounts every month and then move it to the primary account that you spend money on, so that you've got accessible capital in a savings account that in the midst of emergency you can just charge that. Michael said only in life or death situations, if it has to be today. You're well, that depends on how you're feeling, because if you get a flat and you don't have a spare because you did not do uh uh preventative maintenance, then you're kind of stuck. So right now, you need a tire. That's not life or death, but it is definitely this car won't move if you don't buy another tire kind of situation. Um, and if you know the right people, you can get you a tire for $60. But if you don't know the right people, you might not have a tire, right? So that means that you kind of gotta walk the fine line of hoping that this car don't have a blowout because your spare is flat and your primary is got a slow leak. That's the kind of lifestyle where you're rolling the dice. Too many risks with the lack of preventative maintenance is what really causes the most unexpected financial cost in your life that requires you to take capital and put it towards uh, fixing unexpected expenses. Michael says, if it has to be done today, someone is procrastinating. That's why I left that up there for a while because if it is a serious, it just happened scenario, somebody was not taking care of the situation until the situation got too serious. Because, true, if your car needs to be serviced, it breaks down because it wasn't serviced when it was supposed to be serviced. A crash should be covered under your insurance. A medical appointment that was scheduled should have capital to cover the deductible or the doctor's appointment outside of an unexpected ER trip, which they're going to bill you after the fact, so you can pay that eventually. Or since that bill doesn't go on your credit score, you could just say fuck it and leave it there and let them figure out how they're going to charge it off because you know it's one of those situations. But we're going to be talking about all kinds of ways to fix these problems. He says $500 in each bank in town. Yeah, you can do $500 in each bank in time, but you can also, because of online banking, you can apply for bank accounts online. And then because you got your username and password, you can do online banking and ACH transfer a bank to another bank that you control and have a different bank in every state in the country. And you can have 500 banks in the United States or 250 banks and 250 credit unions and put $500 into each one of them. And because they're having that incentive where they're giving you 5 to 7% interest for the first 500 bucks, each one of those accounts that have no transaction fees, no usage requirements, your money's just sitting there making money for you while they're doing what they're doing, but your money's sitting there making money for you until you need it. Then when you have an emergency, instead of freaking out and say, "Oh, I got to sell all my Rolexes and stuff. Oh, I got to sell my chain and everything." You can just say, "Hey, let me just get on the internet and just move money around out of the banks that I control, and then shift it over to a place where I don't have to worry about this problem." Within an hour, you should be able to move money from 300 bank accounts, 500 bank accounts, and make sure that you're good to go. Yep, you'll live eventually, and you'll learn hopefully. So remember to always carry a jack, plenty of cars along the road to pull from. He is right. If you have roadside assistance stuff in the back of your car, two things. You can sell your services to help them fix themselves on the side of the road, but you have what you need to take care of yourself so that you don't have to waste money on AAA. Because the money that you spend on AAA could be paying for your your roadside service. If you have an extra battery in the trunk that you keep charged up, you don't need AAA to give you a jump. You just need to switch out batteries. If you have extra tires in the trunk, you don't need to worry about a blowout. You just got to change your tires. If you keep rechargeable flashlights, you can just use a flashlight when it's dark out. Tow straps. If you've got more than one vehicle, all you got to do is just go get your other vehicle and come back and tow it. You know, if you're prepared. Michael says, I like it when you think like a billionaire. I just, I come out of the because billionaires don't keep their money in the safe. Do you think that a billionaire has $1 billion worth of money in one bank account? No, because the FDIC only covers the first quarter million. So they're likely to have up to a quarter million dollars in one account, but the rest of that money is going to be in other accounts. So even billionaires are going to have 20, 50, 70 different accounts. They might have more than one account in the same bank where each account is covered up to a quarter million dollars. Where if they have $1 million in one bank, they have four accounts that's going to be covered. But that still means that they're going to have a ton of accounts. He said, I keep a Honda generator. So when your electric car runs out of juice, bro, I have always said an electric car is one of the worst vehicles to really be stuck with because if it runs out of power, it is 30 minutes to charge it. If you don't have a backup power source for that bad boy, that motherfucker is stuck. You might as well just tow it home because the time it takes for you to charge it up and drive it home is the time it would have took for a tow truck to drive it back to the house. So the most Um, yeah, if you have like a gas generator in your car, you probably could use that gas generator to charge your smart car, but the time it would take for you to start the smart car, you might have to grab a couple Tesla batteries and just plug them into the system. Something gonna have to shake. Solar panels, something, because when that bad boy don't work no more, oof, that's it. Now we're going to be exposing the huge risks that you're taking by investing without real dedicated cash emergency funds. Then we're going to give you guys step by step blueprints to build a true financial fortress, a rainy day fund that will not only protect you from life's inevitable crisis, but will also paradoxically make you a much better and much more successful long term investor. Now, this isn't about not investing, it's about creating a stability you need to invest successfully for decades without the constant fear of being wiped out by one bad day. A lot of us who just roll the dice, you've been dealing with that slow leak for years, and you're just like, fuck it, I'm good. One day, bro, you're gonna have to just stop by the tire shop and just buy you two tires, one for the full size spare, one for the backup spare, because eventually you're gonna need it. So if you've ever had even a single dollar in the stock market, but less than a few $1,000s in a savings account, you need to stop what you're doing and watch the rest of the day's show, because this might just be more important financial decisions than any decision that you have made all year. Now, we're going to start off by discussing why your portfolio is not a safety net. This is going to be the great deception. Now, let's dig into that viewer's story for a bit more. Priorities. Well, some people don't prioritize emergencies. Some people look at emergencies like, fuck it, I can deal with it. And then they just let it go. And then when it gets bad, then they're up a creek. They recognize that they made a mistake and shrug it off, but now you've got to carry a tire down the street to the tire shop or pay for an Uber to carry your tire down the street to the tire shop instead of making sure that you had a spare. Even if you leave your slow leak and say, well, I'm going to ride the wave until this car doesn't hold up no more, the fact is that you still should have a backup plan for when that tire doesn't inflate no more. Otherwise, you're driving on rim until you get to a tire shop, jacking up your rim where you can't use that anymore. So with that viewer, he was doing everything right according to modern investing playbooks. Every paycheck, he put a couple $100 into a diversified index fund or a different portfolio option, and he watched his $10,000 portfolio grow, and he felt secure. Now that $10,000 felt like a cushion for a while, felt like a safety net. Then his car's transmission died, and the mechanic quoted him $3,000. Guy did not have $3,000 in cash, needed his car, so he turned to his safety net, his investment account. The problem? The market had been in a slump for 2 months. His $10,000 portfolio was actually sitting at around $8,500. To get the $3,000 he needed, he had to sell shares at a loss. So he wasn't just selling $3,000 worth of his original investment, he was making that loss permanent. So he's still giving up on $2,500 worth of capital and also losing out on $3,000. So those shares would never get the chance to recover and grow. Michael says, what do you mean? Last night you had $25 million. Now you're broke. Where's the money? Well, if you were with me yesterday and you had $25 million, then you should have enough money in your portfolio generating cash dividends to where you should not have any emergencies in life that you don't have capital to pay for, because your monthly dividends off of a $25 million portfolio should be depositing into your account every month enough money to cover all of your financial expenses for the next 6 months. And if you live like I take and take 3 to 6 months worth of bills and pay them in advance. For example, pay off the utility bills for the next 12 months, pay off the phone bill for the next 12 months, because those are reoccurring bills that are fixed. Pay off the water bill for the next 12 months, pay off the gas bill for the next 12 months. Your car insurance, you're going to pay that for 6 months at a time. Your mortgage, you can put money into an account that does gain interest for your mortgage and then redirect the money into the account that's going to charge your mortgage. Or you could just pay off your house at $25 million. Your house should not cost $1 million. You should just pay off your house and not have a fucking mortgage. And if that's the case, the remaining $24 million, you still would be living off of that, where your basic bills would be food, laundry, shopping, if you're going to buy clothes and cleaning supplies and stuff to that effect, and then basic monthly expenses. Your phone bill should be $100 to $200 a month, depending on what kind of plan you have. Your light bill and water bill should be inside of $200 a month together, thrown in there with your gas bill. You shouldn't be spending more than $500 a month unless you're paying for a cable bill, which means that you could put down $5,000 or $6,000 towards your basic monthly expenses and cover the next 12 months worth of expenses. And if that's the case, if you're getting deposits every month, you should be able to live off of that without a problem. You should be able to put money aside to live off of, put money aside to waste, and rebalance the remainder back into the portfolio to increase the values. You should be able to put enough money aside to pay for a year's worth of living in America and then fly to another country and be able to live up there and still have money left over in case of an emergency. Like, the only emergencies that you can have for $25 million is if a family member was taken hostage for a ransom. And if that was the case, I would be renegotiating that decision. I'm like, well, hold on. Instead of me giving you money for giving me back somebody I want, how about I give you money to get somebody I don't like? You still get paid, but I'm also happy. I'm like, what kind of monster are you? It's an investment opportunity. Now, we're going to start with the first and most brutal truth about using your portfolio as an emergency fund, especially if you're not selling high. Now, if you're following me with the dividend rotation strategy, and every 2 to 4 days you're buying low and then you're selling high, and then when you sell, the next day the money clears, and you realize in like 5 days you're going to need this money for something. In that scenario, you sold high, you got extra money sitting there settled, and you can just dump some of that money into your account and then rebalance the rest, and you're good. But for people who got that money just tied up in the possession of stocks, doing a buy and hold situation, that is not good. You're forced to sell at the worst possible time, not when it is convenient for you. Emergencies don't care what the S&P 500 is doing. A job loss, a medical bill, a leaky, backed up sewage, these events are often tied to broader economic downturns. And the exact moment your portfolio is likely to be down is when you sell stocks during a market dip. And that's going to be when you're going to be covering that expense. Now you're breaking the number one rule of investing. That number one rule of investing is buy low, sell high. You bought and then you sold less than what you bought, and now you're taking a loss because you're following the lead of that investment opportunity. He said live off of $10,000 per month. That's exactly what I would do, regardless of how many millions of dollars that I've got in the bank. If I'm living off of $10,000 a month, I'm living a $120,000 a year lifestyle. And the lifestyle is not the cost of living. So let's look at that. If you're living off of $10,000 a month, a comfortable standard of living is $68,000 a year. But you could live off of $20,000 to $40,000 a year, where your basic expenses are covered, and then the other $80,000 is wasteful spending if that's what you were trying to do. And that still would give you the ability to travel the world first class. That would give you the ability to ride in limos when you're not driving yourself. that gives you the ability to rent supercars at $500 a day for 3 days, and you would still have the capabilities of getting another $10,000 next month, and the month after that, and the month after that, and you should not ever touch your principal. But if you're living modestly, if you're living a little bit above modest, where you're living responsibly, but you do give yourself quite a few extra luxuries in life, you should not be spending $10,000 a month. If you use $9,000 a month, that would be fantastic. Oh yeah, you don't want to buy a jet. You want to rent a jet. You want to rent a jet. You want to rent a yacht. You want to rent supercars. You want to rent a Bugatti. You want to rent a Rolls Royce. You don't want to buy that shit. If you're buying a Rolls Royce, you want to buy one used. You don't want to buy a brand new one. You can buy a brand new one if you've got $25 million. But why spend $500,000 for a vehicle that does not benefit you? You can buy a Resvani tank because that will benefit you. I'm with the with the pepper spray and the electronic doors and the bulletproof glass and the gun rack in the back, where you could put a 20 to 25 gallon gas can in the back of your Resvani tank, and then when the deal go dirty, you can just pump gas in your car from your car. And even I think that thing's got a 15 or 20 gallon tank, so you would actually have a whole tank of gas in the back of your vehicle, and you could just ride around and do you carry you a bunch of assault rifles and be prepared for the zombie apocalypse. And I think those things are like, if you get the bigger SUV one, those bad boys hold between 6 to 8 people in it, so you could really take a team with you. With what? But that for $500,000, I would say that would be worth it, because most people could shoot at it. They could throw a grenade at it. They could, outside of it being hit with a drone strike, not much that can destroy that vehicle. That's probably the only thing I would spend $500,000 on. But all the other vehicles that just look cute, but if you hit it with a shopping cart, it's totaled out. Nah, you just rent it, use it for the day, and then bring it back, because the experience of being in it is all that you really wanted in life, and the experience of being in it multiple times is still cheaper than the cost of owning it and then only being in it for 20 or 30 times. When you divide $500,000 off of 20 or 30 uses, you would have 30 usages at 500 to $1,000, which still would have been like ten to $20,000 over the course of a lifetime versus $500,000 for a car. You just got to think about these things. All right. Now, instead of dealing with this, because you're forcing to sell low, locking in the losses and guaranteeing that you miss out on the eventual recovery, you want to think about this. And during the 2008 financial crisis, people lost their jobs and saw their 401ks get crushed. The ones who had to cash out to survive didn't just take a temporary hit, they were knocked out of the market right before one of the longest bull runs in history. So they sold at the bottom and then watched the top break the ceiling. And, I'm telling y'all, some folks took their own life. They wasn't okay with that. And this is what financial nerds call a sequence of returns risk, but applied to your whole life. Your 401k is a 201k now. That ain't got shit in it. The order things happen in matters. And this is going to matter a lot. In emergency, that forces you to sell during a downturn can permanently cripple your ability to build wealth. It's a devastating 1-2 punch. Your income is going down, it's gone, and your assets are at their lowest value right when you need to cash them in. The second danger is taxes and penalties. So let's say that you're investing in a tax advantage retirement account, a 401k, or a traditional IRA. If you're under 59 and a half 59 and a half, so 59 in 6 months, and you pull money out for an emergency, you're not just selling your investment. He said, and makes me money. Oh, yeah. You see why I be stacking up on that bull run. I'm trying to make money for myself. He said you're also going to get hit with income taxes on that withdrawal, plus a 10% early withdrawal penalty. So suddenly your $3,000 emergency costs you closer to $4,000 once the government takes its share. So using your retirement account as an emergency fund is like using a fire extinguisher that sprays gasoline. It makes a problem catastrophically worse. Now, even in a regular brokerage account, you've got to think about capital gains taxes. If you've held investments for more than a year and sell it for a profit, you owe long term capital gains taxes. If it's been less than a year, you owe short term capital gains taxes, which is the same as regular income tax rates, much higher. So even in the best case scenario where your portfolio is up, you're still giving away a chunk of your money that could have stayed invested and growing for you. Now, the third and maybe the most sneaky danger is the psychology damage. Long term investing requires patience. It requires you to stomach the ups and downs and trust the process. When you mix your long term goals with your short term emergency needs, you create a recipe for panic. Every market dip feels terrifying. You're not just worried about retirement in 30 years, you're worried about a 10% correction means you can't afford to fix your car next month. That's the problem. This mindset makes it impossible to be a successful investor. You'll be tempted to sell during every downturn, not just when you have an emergency, but just out of fear. You can't take the appropriate risks for long term growth because your brain is stuck in short term survival mode. Your investment portfolio is a tool for one job, building long term wealth. So your emergency fund is a tool for another reason, protecting your short term from crisis. Using the same tool for both jobs doesn't work. So if your investments aren't a safety net, what is? The answer is going to be simple, but its power is incredible. A dedicated liquid cash fund. We call it an emergency fund, but I want you to think of it as a freedom fund because that's what it really gives you. It's freedom from fear, freedom to make decisions based on opportunity, not desperation. You find yourself making more beneficial opportunities for yourself when you are not acting in desperation. A deal that might give you a little bit of money for a lot of effort might seem feasible for you because you really need that little bit of money. But if you didn't need that money, you might reject that waste of effort to find something that gives you a lot more value for even less effort, which becomes more of a benefit for you. It's the freedom to walk away from a toxic job, the freedom to handle a layoff without panicking, the freedom to deal with a surprise medical bill without racking up high interest debt. And most importantly, it's the freedom to let your long term investments do their thing without ever being disturbed by short term chaos. Your emergency fund is your financial parachute. So you hope you never need it, but knowing it's there lets you fly the plane with confidence. It's a moat around your financial castle. It protects your long term wealth, which is the castle, from a life of marauders. The job loss, the sudden illness, the blown engine. Without that moat, your castle is totally exposed. Is that the money allows you room to move, decreasing stress. And if you move with your best interest in mind, then you're not stressed about other people's financial devastations because I could give two shits if somebody called me and say that they ain't got it. Well, you ain't got it, and I ain't got it neither because you didn't give it to me. He said money becomes a cushion to fall on. Money becomes a nice, comfy waterbed that you can sleep on. One of those sleep number beds that gives you the right amount of pressure at the right time, but the softness right when you need it. It's warm when it's cold out, it's cool when it's hot out, regulates everything. It offsets the dissatisfaction of life. So let's be crystal clear about what this fund is for. It's for true emergencies only. So, ladies, getting your hair did is not an emergency. Buying a dress for this special event tonight, not an emergency. Getting your makeup redid, not an emergency. Abortion, not an emergency. Yeah, I threw it out there. The golden rule is to ask three questions. Is it unexpected? Is it absolutely necessary or something that you just prefer? And is it urgent? A 50% off TV sale is not an emergency. A vacation is not an emergency. A down payment on a house is a planned savings goal, not an emergency. An emergency is your fridge dying and all of your food is about to spoil. It's a trip to the ER with a $2,000 copay. It's your company announcing layoffs and your job is gone. These are the shocks that can completely derail your life if you're not ready. Have a second fridge in the garage. Y'all know what's good for you. Having cash for these events does a few critical things. First, it keeps you out of debt because without a $3,000 uh, bill that you have cash to pay, this will always end up on a credit card. And with interest rates often over 20%, that debt can quickly spiral into a $4,000 or $5,000 problem that you're paying off for years. Some people might use their credit cards to mitigate emergencies and then pay the credit card off immediately thereafter depending on how much your credit card limits are and when the cutoff date of your billing cycle is, there is the opportunity for you to charge certain things to your credit card and then pay your credit card down to $1, let the billing cycle roll over where there's only $1 on your card for the credit report. But if you're just going to tax this emergency, then your billing cycle rolls over. You've maxed out your credit card for this month. I just told you guys that the new Vantage 5, the Vantage 4, and the FICO's credit scores and stuff that just got changed over with Donald Trump's law, that maxed out credit card this time might negatively impact your loan opportunity in 2 years. So it's not a good idea to let the bill roll over with a maxed out credit card. It's not a good idea to use your credit card for anything that's going to cost more than 30% of the value of your credit limit. And some people might say, I'm going to split it up across 5 or 6 cards. You probably could. You probably could. But the problem is going to be now you got to pay all them cards off before the billing date. Michael says from 1 to 10, 10 you're dead. Lost my job, maybe an 8. You're right. Forget to pick up flowers. That's an 11. Shoot, I'm gonna give her a screenshot of some flowers. Now, an emergency fund is your escape hatch from the long-standing cycle of paying off long-term debt. I've experienced that plenty of times before in my childhood because I didn't know any better. And when emergencies happen, I would max out all of my credit cards to pay for the emergency. Then the family members that I paid the emergency for would not help me pay off the credit cards. So now I have to charge off these credit cards and take the financial hit because I'm doing for them, but ain't nobody doing for me. That's not what you're supposed to do. If you ain't got enough cash to put down on the situation, then you ain't got no credit to put towards it neither. You just leave it alone to tell them, hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you. Second, it massively reduces stress. Having a emergency fund massively reduces your stress. The weight of living paycheck to paycheck, knowing you're one flat tire away from a crisis, is just immense. It impacts your health, your relationships, your work. An emergency fund buys you peace of mind. It lets you focus on solving the actual problem, like finding a new job, without the added panic of figuring out how to pay for it. The mental space is priceless. Third, it keeps your long term financial plans on track. So, this is the crucial link back to investments. When you have 3 to 6 months of living expenses sitting in a safe in your house, under the floorboards, boring savings accounts, you don't have to worry about the stock market's daily mood swings. You can watch the market drop 20%. And while it's not fun, you won't feel that gut wrenching panic. You know your bills are covered for months. This allows you to adopt the true mindset of long term investing. Patience. It gives you the power to ride out downturns and maybe even see them as opportunities to buy more, knowing your immediate security isn't at risk. I'm going to tell you, I just thought about it while I was talking about this. If you have 6 months worth of income in your banks, like I told you, $500 as a minimum investment into every type of bank account that is offering you 5% or more interest for that $500 to sit there with no usage or transactional fees on it, and 7% for the credit unions that's doing the same thing, and you're putting that down 120 uh bank accounts, you got 60 grand just sitting somewhere. You should be able to, if you don't do it once a month, you should be able to once every 6 months or once a year, once a quarter, something like that, shave off everything above $500 out of each one of those accounts and then put it into a safe in your house. So you've got cash on hand for an emergency. So you get out of bed, get the money out the safe, go take care of the problem. Never have to go to the bank. Then, for more serious emergencies, you reroute money from the bank accounts to an account that you have access to and pull some money out of an ATM machine or charge it to a debit card. Then you have the other scenarios that is far beyond that, where you might have to sell some stock or leverage some capital or get a loan or something to that effect. Leverage will eat that money up. Well, the bank account gives you a fixed amount of money regardless of how inflation works. The money that's sitting in the safe is going to sit in the safe. The cost from inflation is going to make that, if you have $1,000 in a safe, things that used to cost $100 back in the day now cost $3,000 today, which is why you have to continue to increase your emergency fund to offset the cost of inflation. If you want $60,000 to cover for 6 months worth of living, well, some people don't have 6 months worth of living and $60,000. $60,000 might cover 3 years worth of living, but inflation might change that to only covering 18 months. It might change that to only covering 1 year. And unless you continue to increase your emergency fund, you're not going to be prepared for what happens if I'm unemployed for 18 months, right? So the fact is, though, you do want to have accessible cash. You want to have money to pay $10,000 to rebuild your engine if you don't have the money to buy a new car. You want to have $5,000 in the bank to rebuild your transmission so that you can, no matter what kind of car you're driving, you can service your transmission. You want to have enough money to spend $800 or $1,000, $1,200 to replace your tires. You want to have money to, if you're kid needs braces, or if you um, need to go to a chiropractor and deal with some orthopedic stuff, or like any type of less than $10,000 worth of emergency, you need to have some money sitting somewhere. That way you're good to go, right? You need to. And then you can start preparing for the big things. Like what happens if my car is totaled out and it's not covered under my insurance? Actually, the average person has less than $1,000 in their bank account, but they do have some people have more than $500 in their bank account. It's okay to have money in a high interest account. Just putting it into an account just for the sake of putting it into an account, that's a waste. Because with all of the incentives that are out there, where banks are propositioning people to utilize their bank as a holding place for their capital, each incentive is offering that percentage of interest on a checking account. If you open a checking account today, they'll give you 5.24%, 5.14%. Credit unions are offering 7.14%, 7.25% for the first $500. Some accounts are saying for the life of the account. Some accounts are saying for the first 18 months of the account. Some accounts are saying the first account gets that and the second account doesn't. GTE used to have a situation where they gave you 5% on the checking account and another 5% on the savings account. So you could put the money into the savings account and take everything over the $500 and roll it over to the checking account and then build up the checking account. And that $1,000 would be getting a 5% interest on it, but it would be just for the initial accounts. One checking and one savings account. So every account you opened after that with that bank, it wouldn't do that. So just putting it into the bank, yeah, you might lose a little bit of money in comparison to inflation, but putting it into a bank that is guaranteed to give you a percentage of interest, regardless of what inflation feels like. And then if you shave that interest off the top of your money and put it into your house and save, now you've got money in your house and money in your bank before you get to your portfolio. Think about that. Your emergency fund is going to be the ultimate defensive player. Its job isn't to score points. Its job is to provide stability when you need it most. So comparing the interest on your emergency fund to your stock portfolio returns is missing the point completely. Because while you can get 5 to 7% interest from your emergency fund, if you're following my lead, getting 18 to 20% interest on your stock portfolio and then getting 35% per month on a dividend rotation strategy, you're not making as much money from your emergency fund as you're making from your stock portfolio, but you are keeping your emergency fund from allowing you to tap into your stock portfolio. Because what's better, to use your 5% interest gaining capital to take care of an emergency, or withdrawing the money from a 20% or 35% per month revolving line of increasing capital? I think it's better to take a dive on the smaller interest rates than it is to take a dive on the larger ones. We used to get S&W green stamps. That was back in the day. Now, you don't judge a goalkeeper by how many goals they score. You judge them by how many they save. So your emergency fund is your financial goalkeeper. It's there to protect your net worth and make sure one bad day doesn't wipe out years of progress. Now, this is the foundation, and it's the first real step to taking control of your money and breaking the cycle of financial stress. Before you think about picking stocks or getting hyped about crypto, you have to build this first. Okay, I hope the why is crystal clear. An emergency fund isn't just a nice idea, it's the non negotiable first step. Now, let's get to the how. This can feel like a huge task, especially if you're starting from zero. But we're going to break it down into three simple steps. Forget the overwhelm. We're building this fortress one brick at a time. First step, calculate your survival number. We need a target. You'll hear people say save 3 to 6 months of expenses. But what does that actually mean? This is your survival number. We did this estimation on the show. We did a whole show about what's your number, calculating your wealth. He said always pay yourself first. 80. Well, we're talking about the the survival number, not your age. We're talking about the survival number is the amount of money you need to survive for a certain period of months. It's the bare bones amount that you need to stay afloat if your income vanished tomorrow. So this is not 3 or 6 months of your current fun lifestyle. It's 3 to 6 months of just the essentials. Yeah, we're not trying to see how long can you live. We're trying to see how much money do you need to live that long. You gotta think about that. 41,320 hours left. Oh man, that's a lot of time. I want you guys to grab a notepad or open a spreadsheet. We're going to go through your last few bank and credit card statements and add up only what is absolutely necessary for survival. This is going to include your house, your rent or your mortgage. How much does that cost? Utilities, power, gas, water, and basic internet. Let's be real. Internet is an essential these days. We're talking about just the internet, not cable. You do not need cable. If you've got Cox Cable and you did a bundle package and you're paying $250 a month for Cox Cable when you could be just paying for a basic internet line for $80 a month, you don't need cable, right? Food, your average monthly grocery bill. Be honest, but lean. So this is your rice and beans budget, not your steak and wine budget. You might want to put a little bit of ground beef in there, some hot dogs and stuff like that. But, really, what do you need to live with? Transportation is important. Car payments, car insurance, and realistic guesses for gas. So, I mean, if you drive every day, you fill your tank up once a week, you're going to be filling your tank up about 4 to 5 times a month. If you're putting $100 in your tank every time you fill up, you're putting between $400 and $500 a month into your tank every month. This is how you do your calculations. Or if you're doing monthly transportation passes for those individuals who don't have a driver's license because they got a DUI and their license got suspended, now you're catching the bus all the time. If you use an Uber or some other type of transportation method and they're charging you $20 a ride and you need 30 rides a month, and I'm talking about like 15 basically round trip rides because you got to go out there and you got to come back. If that's what you got to do, you got to calculate that. You're going bare bones to ramen, bro. If you can actually take ramen and you can either do like dry ramen or you could take ramen and you can use like some of the spices and stuff in the house and actually turn ramen into all kinds of nifty meals. You can do ramen with hot dogs and sprinkle some cheese on that shit. Yeah. You can put some Italian herb spices into it and stuff. There's probably 3,000 ways that you can turn ramen into a good meal, and ramen is like 30 cents a packet. So with season, you can use ramen with the pork seasoning or the barbecue seasonings that you use to flavor steaks and stuff, and give your ramen a steak flavor. That's crazy. Now, health insurance premiums is going to be another thing you want to have. Life insurance, if you have any, you don't have to get it to do this, but if you do have it, you want to calculate that into it, things to that effect. Minimum debt payments, if you're on a payment plan. The minimum on any student loans or credit cards, your mortgage is already included in your house. Anything else, you want to get those calculations. Now, here's what your ruthless cuts from calculation are going to be. You're getting rid of restaurants, coffee shops, takeout, Netflix subscriptions, Spotify, iTunes, gym memberships. Everything's gone. Entertainment is gone. Movies gone, concerts gone, vacations gone, long trips to the beach. Shopping is gone. Ladies, y'all are not getting new clothes. Fellas, you're not getting new gadgets. Anything that isn't a true need, all of that is gone out of your budget. Add up 1 month of your survival expenses. Let's say your mortgage is like $1,500, utilities around 200, groceries are 400, transportation is 300, your insurance is 100. Your essential monthly cost would be about $2,500 a month. Now, for 10 months, that's $25,000. Now, another 12 months, that's well, 2 more months, that's an extra $5,000. So that means that you would be for $30,000 at that standard of living, $30,000 a year with $2,500 a month worth of expenses. Now, comfortable standard of living is 68,000 a year, but that means that if 30,000 of that is bare necessities, the other 38,000 is luxurious entertainment for the wife. I told y'all 41% of what a man got to pay for is to make her smile. Ain't got shit to do with bare needs. Now, you want to multiply that by three and by six. And in this case, your emergency fund goal is between 7,500 for 3 months and 15,000 for 6 months, or 30,000 for 12 months, 68,000 per family. Nah, for one person. That's the average across the country, including the extremes of California, New York, and stuff to that effect. But again, at 15,000 for 6 months, that's not a lot when you think about what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish here. So, what is your number? If you have a super stable job in a high demand field and a two income household, you might feel fine starting with a 3 month goal. If you're self employed, a single income earner, have kids, or work in a shaky industry, you should absolutely aim for a 6 month marker, maybe even more than that. I would say 12 to 18 months because in modern society, it takes you 3 to 6 months to find another job if you're looking. Don't let the number freak you out though. It's just a target. The most important thing is to start. In fact, and many experts like David Ramsey suggest a starter emergency fund for just $1,000 as your very first goal. That $1,000 is small, but a powerful buffer that can stop a flat tire from becoming a credit card disaster while you work on bigger goals. So if the big number feels impossible, just focus on saving that first $1,000 as fast as you can. Step two is going to be to choose your vault, where you keep your emergency funds. This is very important because where you keep the money matters just as much as having it. Three rules for your fund's location are safety, liquidity, and separation. First, safety. The money can't be at risk. Its job is to be there, period. This means you cannot invest your emergency fund in stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, or crypto. The risk of it losing value is a deal breaker. The money has to be in an FDIC insured account, which means it's protected by the federal government up to $250,000. Second, liquidity. You need to be able to get this money fast without penalties. An emergency won't wait for you. You need to be able to get your hands on this cash in 1 or 2 days max. He said, David Ramsey, I am dead. Oh, he's saying $87,540 is the average household income for four. Well, they do add a percentage in there for every extra individual that you're living with. But typically, when they're doing an income for four, it's two adults and two children, and the children cost less than the adults. Third is separation. Your emergency fund should not live in your main checking account. If it does, you'll spend it. Or an unexpected transaction, a subscription that you wasn't prepared for, something that you took a free trial on and didn't remember to cancel, will tap into your emergency fund if it's sitting in your primary account. You have to move all savings away from your spending account. So I've told you guys, money coming in, that's one account. I just expressed to y'all you need money for the government. Whether you use the same account for your tax return as your same account for your Social Security disability, doesn't matter. You need to have at least one account for the government, if not two. Incoming money from the government and outgoing money to pay your taxes. And then from your job, any kind of job that you're getting money from, income money. So that's like three bank accounts right there. Then outgoing money. You have outgoing money for in person spending, outgoing money for online spending. You're going to have outgoing money for automatic bill pay, for everything that's on automatic bill pay, and that is six accounts. That is just spending and receiving money. That is not savings. So if you were saving money in 120 other checking accounts is giving you high interest rates separate from these six that I just told you, that's 126 accounts. People are like, shoot, I ain't managing all of that. All right. You don't necessarily have to, but if you wanted to maximize your money, that would be the best way to do it. You could just get an eighth or ninth account that you just put money in, and you've got one account for short, small emergencies and one account for large emergencies. You can do that. But however you do it, the first six styles of accounts that I told you about, separate from your savings accounts. It's a mental trick. If it's there, if you see it, you can spend it. Also, it does help if you have 120 different accounts. You're not going to look at any one account and think, oh, I've got enough money to go buy X, Y, and Z, because each one account might only have like $550 in it. But if you have 120 accounts with $550 in it, you've got a significantly large quantity of money there. Make sure you guys remember to like and subscribe. When you see a big balance in your checking account, your brain thinks it's available for spending. You need a barrier. So, where does it go? The best place for your emergency fund right now is high interest savings accounts, or those high interest checking accounts, money market accounts, stuff to that effect, that is separate from the one that's holding all your money. A high interest savings account usually offers, from areas like online banks, is the perfect thing for this, because you can get an account from anywhere in the country. All you need to do is submit your ID, fill out a little bit of information, transfer money to it from your primary account. The account is open. You don't even have to live in the city or state of that bank. The safety there, they are FDIC insured. Your money is safe. This is separate from having a safe or a vault or something like that in your house. Cutting a hole in your wall and putting the money in the hole in the wall and then putting a picture frame over it. These are things that you can do, but you got to make sure that if you're putting money in your house, that nobody knows that there's a safe in your house. A hidden safe is always good. If you could put a hidden room in your house, that's even better. uh, Easier to let your wife hold it for you. Nah, that's bullshit right there. I don't know what he be cracking jokes. He said, "Oh, yeah, give it to your wife. Shit, that money is gone. As soon as you give her, if you had the type of woman that would save your money and invest the extra, then that would be a fantastic job. A 1960s woman, a 1970s woman, maybe even an early 80s woman. That would be a fantastic idea. 2025, you give a girl $1,000 today. By tonight, the money is gone. If you give her $1,000 now, by the time I go live again, the money is gone. You give her $10,000 right now, by the time I go live tomorrow, the money will be gone, bro. I don't care what female thumbs down the podcast on that. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. I'm gonna tell you the truth. You put some money on that money gonna be gone. The liquidity aspect of this is that you can usually transfer money to your checking account in 1 to 3 business days. And as of late 2025, many high interest savings accounts are offering interest rates of up to 4 or even 5%. And that's different from the checking accounts that were doing the same. So this lets you fund your emergency fund and allow your fund to grow and fight off some of the inflation while it sits there, which is a way better option than traditional savings accounts that might pay a pathetic 0.39%, which is lower than the former 0.69%. Separation, since it's likely at a different bank than the one that you actively go to, it's out of sight. It's not on the regular monthly bank statements. It's out of mind. It forces you to pause before dipping into it for an emergency. It requires you to remember that account exists so that you can go over to that account and tap for cash. So, in an emergency, it is definitely an emergency when you're looking for cash and you're searching for an account that has money in it. That's when you know you're dealing with an emergency. If it's a situation like, again, if it takes 3 days to transfer it over, your impulse buy can't happen today because the money won't clear the bank. For today is Friday, it won't clear the bank till Tuesday. So your impulse purchase is not going to get covered till Tuesday. By Tuesday, you probably won't even care about the purchase itself. On Friday, you're not going to be interested in making the transfer because it's not that important. Another solid option is money market accounts. These are also FDIC insured and often have competitive rates, sometimes with the bonus of a debit card or checks. What to avoid? Your main checking account, too easy to spend it. Standard savings account at your local bank, the interest rates are usually terrible. Certificates of deposit, your money is locked up and you pay a penalty to get it early. The stock market, we just spent hour and a half talking about why that is a disaster. Cash under your mattress, it's not safe and and losses buying power to inflation every day. It's leaving the money at your house does give you the ability to access it quickly. He said what? To access your account will need both signatures. No, you're talking about a joint account. You're talking about a joint account. If you're going to open a joint account with your partner and you put it into the bank, you have the type of joint account that requires both signatures for withdrawals. You're not issuing a debit card from that account. Then, yes, if it's an emergency, we both got to go to that account to go and get that money. But typically, what most couples do is in case of an emergency, because if there is an emergency and I'm not available, that is the emergency. She can't go to that bank and get the money because she needs my signature. And that's the problem. What most couples do is make each other the power of attorney of each other's assets, where in case of an emergency, I don't got to be at my bank account. My wife can go to my bank account and take all the money out of my bank account. Now, my wife can also go to my bank account and take all the money out of my bank account and it not be an emergency. This is why you gotta know your emergency fund. Yes, that's right. Now, if you open a separate high interest savings account today, name it Freedom Fund or Financial Fortress, this simply acts uh, as your safety net and dedicated home to huge steps in the right direction. But it also gives you the ability off the play, you can save the world. I'm going to do the best I can, one podcast at a time. Um, But by naming your bank account online allows you to have the capabilities when you go and check that account. Its duty, its purpose is the name of the account. It doesn't just say savings or checking. It says what it's there for. Financial freedom, vacation, retirement fund, whatever the case may be. See you tomorrow, bro. Because you talk about happy weekend like your ass ain't coming back tomorrow. You're gonna be here tomorrow. You're the moderator. But it does help you with preparation. So when you want to go and do an emergency birthday, it's not an emergency. You do it a birthday party or some shit like that. When you start thinking about that investment opportunity, you go to certain accounts. The name on the account will tell you, don't spend that money. Step three, the automation engine, how to build your fund without thinking about it. You have your target, you have your accounts. Now, how do you actually fill it up? The answer is not, I'll save whatever is left at the end of the month, because for most of us, that amount is zero. The key is automation and intensity. First, automate your savings account. The most powerful financial habit is to pay yourself first, as Michael been saying all night long. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your new high interest savings account. Have it happen the day you get paid before you even have a chance to miss it. You're treating your savings like a bill. It's non negotiable. How much? Well, look at your budget. Start with the amount that feels a little tight but won't break you. Maybe it's $58 a paycheck, maybe it's $200 a paycheck. The key is consistency. Small regular deposits add up faster than you think. Second, unleash the gazelle intensity. This term comes from David Ramsey and it describes a short term, all out sprint to hit a financial goal. Building your starter fund is a sprint, not a marathon. It's about making temporary sacrifices for a few months to build a foundation that will serve you for life. Here's how you find extra money to throw at the fund. Slash your expenses. Go back to that non survival list for the next 3 months. Challenge yourself to cut it all. Cancel every subscription you don't desperately need. Stop eating out. Do not do a no spend challenge. Every dollar you save goes straight into the Freedom Fund. Sell everything. Walk through your home and find stuff that you don't use, old gadgets, clothes, furniture, listed on Facebook Marketplace or eBay or some of the other trading platforms that's out there. And you could be garage sales and stuff, estate sales. You could be sitting on hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. All of it goes into the fund. Pick up a side hustle for a short time. Think about boosting your income. Drive for Uber Eats, Postmates, Instacart. Do freelance work online, walk dogs, babysit, whatever. Remember, it's not forever. It's a focused push to change your financial future. 100% of that side cash goes to your emergency fund. Redirect windfalls. That's going to be the next thing. Get a tax refund, a bonus from work, cash for your birthday. Resist the urge to blow it. Every dollar of unexpected money goes directly into your fortress until it's full. This 1-2 punch of automation for consistency and intensity for speed is unstoppable. It'll get you to that $1,000 first goal and then to your 6 to 3 month goal. And even so, in some situations, as fast acting as it does, get you straight up to your 12-month and 18-month goal. And it's going to happen way faster than you thought possible. Now, by the way, if this is starting to make sense and you're feeling some clarity about your own financial plans, do me a quick favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel to get this message out to more people. And I'm curious, what's the biggest thing holding you back from your savings? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to talk about it with you guys. Now, moving on. Once you get started, you're going to have questions. The basics are clear, but life is messy. Let's tackle some of the most common questions people run. This is great, but I've already started investing. Should I sell my investment to build my emergency fund? This is a fantastic and super common question. The answer is it depends. First, let's set a new rule. From this moment on, pause all new contributions to your investment account. There's one small exception we'll get to. Every dollar you were investing should now be redirected with that gazelle intensity towards your emergency fund. Now, about selling what you already have. Here's how to think about it. If your investments are in a taxable brokerage account, check the current value versus what you paid. If your investments are down or about flat, it could make sense to sell them and move that to cash to your high yield savings account. You won't have a big tax bill and you'll be moving the money from a risky place to a safe one, which is an immediate goal. If you have big gains, you have to weigh the cost of capital tax gains against the risk of leaving your emergency cash in the market. In that case, it might be better to just pause new contributions and save aggressively from your income instead of taking a tax hit. If your investments are in a retirement account like a 401k or an IRA, you should try to avoid selling these at all costs. Like we talked about, pulling from these accounts earlier often triggers income taxes and a 10% penalty. It's a devastating blow. And in this case, the best move is almost always to leave the retirement fund alone and focus all of your energy on building a separate cash fund from your income. The one exception to pausing all investing is your 401k match. If your employer offers a match, that's free money, often a 100% return on investment. That's too good to pass up. It usually makes sense to keep contributing just enough to get the full match while still throwing most of your savings efforts at the emergency fund. Once the fund is full, you can crack your retirement savings back up. So, short answer, pause new investing, redirect the cash flow to your high interest savings accounts, and only think about selling existing non retirement investments if you can do it without a major tax penalty or a huge financial loss. Next question. Can I just build a big dividend portfolio and use the income for emergencies? This is a really tempting idea you'll see floating around online. The thinking is you build a portfolio of stocks that pays dividends. And if an emergency happens, you just use that cash flow. For 99% of people, this is an absolute terrible substitute for a dedicated cash fund. Here's why. Dividends are not guaranteed. Companies can and do cut their dividends, especially during a recession. The exact time you're most likely to need the money, your reliability, the income could disappear overnight. The market risk is still there. The value of the stocks themselves can still tank. If you have an emergency that costs more than your dividend income, you're right back where you started, forced to sell stocks at a terrible time. It creates a conflict. The goal of an emergency fund is 100% safety. The goal of an investment growth. Try to make one asset do both jobs, it will do neither. So, since your goal for investments is growth and the goal for your emergencies is safety, you cannot get growth and safety out of the same account. You'll be tempted to chase higher dividend yields, which often means taking on more risk. And now your safety net isn't actually safe. However, for a specific kind of investor, let's call them a startup investor who has fewer emergencies and wants to build their funds at the same time. There are two advanced dividend based strategies that you might consider to help fuel your emergency fund during stable times. I want to be clear, these come with unique risks and are not for beginners. The first route is to add to your portfolio principal, but deposit the dividends into your emergency fund. Here's how it works. You consistently invest extra income into your stock portfolio. That's going to pay you monthly or quarterly dividends. But each time those dividends are paid out, instead of reinvesting them, you automatically transfer them to your separate high interest yield savings account for emergencies. The benefit is that your extra funds can compound in the market over time, and the dividends provide a semi passive income stream to build your emergency savings. Your principal remains invested, aiming for both growth and an increasing dividend yield. The risks, however, are significant. During a market downturn, those dividends can be cut or suspended entirely. And if a true emergency arises during a bear market, you might have to tap your principal at a loss anyway. Plus, it can take years for a portfolio to generate significant dividend income, leaving your emergency fund underfunded early on. It is a huge risk that you can take. And if you have a less uh, complicated lifestyle with fewer emergency funds and more planned uh, preemptive maintenance, preventative maintenance, allowing yourself to navigate past most unexpected failures, you could be able to pull this off. The second route is for some individuals, not those of us that are starting up, but someone much further along. If your portfolio is large enough to cover living expenses, so you can withdraw a portion of the dividends. In this scenario, you've already built a substantial dividend focused portfolio whose annual dividends can cover or exceed your standard living. Each month or quarter, you deposit a predetermined percentage of that dividend income into your separate emergency fund, while the rest covers your expenses or gets reinvested. The benefit here is a regular income stream and the flexibility to siphon off part of it into an emergency buffer. The risk is that this requires a massive amount of capital to reach this stage. Reason being, if you're rolling on portfolios that are doing 10% return, if, like Michael said, the standard of a comfortable standard of living for a family of four is $84,000. If you needed an $84,000 a year income with as the 10% payout, you would need $840,000 in the stock market. If you were doing something a little higher than that, where you were doing something closer to 20% return, you might be able to pull off that $80,000 with something closer to $400,000. But that still means that you would have to put up $400,000 to get back 80,000 a year at 20% return. In order for you to put up $400,000, you would either be putting away 40,000 a year for 10 years to get $400,000, or 20,000 a year for 20 years to get $40,000. So you understand how many years you're going to go without the security that you need, rolling the dice on not having a massive emergency. If the dividends are reduced by the companies that you own, both your regular spending money and your emergency savings could be impacted at the same time. So let's be crystal clear about both approaches. Unlike a pure cash emergency fund, these methods sacrifice liquidity and safety for potentially higher long term returns. You can take the risk, but even safe dividend stocks are subject to market declines and dividend cuts. Some experts suggest a hybrid system, a core cash buffer for small emergencies, plus portfolio dividend, portfolio driven dividends inflows for larger ones. So you might put $1,000 or $5,000 into your account for small emergencies to start with, and then every month take some of your cash dividends and add to that until you've reached that 15, 20, 30, $60,000 emergency fund. To reduce risks, diversification, and choosing high quality, low volatility dividend stocks is absolutely critical. Bottom line, neither of these approaches is as foolproof as a simple cash based emergency fund. And while, yes, you will lose value from inflation by leaving money in a safe at your house in comparison to the increase of cost of capital over the years, the fact is that the most accessible capital that you have is the money that's in the under the mattress, in the walls, or in a safe at the house. Because while yes, you can go to the bank and get the money, you got to think about where do you start with this emergency scenario. You should have a few $100s in your wallet. That way, if something happens while you're out, you've got cash on hand to fix the problem before you charge a credit card. Second off, you can have cash at your house. That way, if you're the kind of person that travels with no cash, you charge it to your card, then you take the money from the cash the next day or later that week, put it onto the ATM machine, load it up into the bank, pay the card off, and now the card is still good. You need to have regularly accessible capital right there. Now, putting it in the bank, good place to go as long as those banks are putting out interest. Notice as the country navigates primarily to digital transactions, less likely will cash be a thing. Until cash phases out completely, you want to have some cash in case you end up in a situation where the credit card machine's not working and you're at the gas station and you need cash, you need gas. You got to be able to do that. For those with very stable jobs, low living costs, and already ample portfolio assets, using dividends to supplement, not fully replace, emergency savings may be a reasonable strategy. However, it's wise to maintain some liquid, risk free cash at all times, since equity markets can behave unpredictably exactly when you need emergency access the most. So, for those individuals that want to ride ETFs, you might want to leave five or $10,000 worth of accessible cash so that you can take advantage of an investment. If the money is there, you haven't taken advantage of the investment yet, but you have an emergency, you can deposit the money and take care of the emergency. The problem with that is 1 to 3 days, still needing cash on hand that you can have a problem this morning and take care of it tonight kind of situation. You got a problem tonight, you can take care of it tomorrow kind of situation. You need cash on hand so that if you have a problem tonight when the banks are closed, mechanic shops are closed, tow companies are closed, some of the stuff that you could potentially take care of overnight can be done in cash. So you want to do that. How much is really enough? That's a good question. Is 3 months okay, or do I have to do six? The 3 to 6 month rule is a guideline, not a commandment. The right amount for you really depends on your life and your own tolerance for risk. Think of it as a risk spectrum. Lower end, 3 months. This might be fine if you're in a two income household, have a rock solid job like a government worker who didn't get fired by Trump, or a tenured professor, no kids, and low expenses. Middle ground, 6 months. This is the gold standard and the right target for most people. It's a strong cushion that can handle most of life's curveballs, including serious periods of job loss, but it did not protect you from COVID. Higher end safety, you should seriously consider a big fund of your uh, assets if you're the sole provider for your family. 9 to 12 months, maybe even 18 months. So your employer, if you're self-employed with a fluctuating income, if you have ongoing health concerns, if somebody in your family has ongoing health concerns, or you just hate risk and want maximum peace of mind, the goal is to save enough cash to let you sleep at night. Start with 1,000, then build to 3 months, then build to six. When you hit that mark, check in with yourself. If you still feel anxious, if you're worried about a potential job loss, keep saving towards that 6 month mark. It's better to have a little too much cash than not enough. This isn't just about math, it's about security. Don't let anyone tell you you're losing out on returns by having a 6 month safety net. The stability and peace of mind you're gaining is worth so much more. I want you to really imagine two different futures for a second. In future number one, you ignore all of this, you keep pouring every spare dollar into your investments. The balance grows and you feel a rush seeing the numbers go up. But underneath, there is a constant low grade anxiety. You know you're one bad day away from having a smashed glass and the portfolio might suffer. When the market dips, you feel sick. When your car makes a weird noise, your first thought isn't, I should get that checked out. It's, please not now. Life is a tightrope, and you're walking without a net. A crisis eventually comes, it always does, and you're forced to sell at a loss, setting yourself back years. Now imagine the second future. You take this advice, you spend the next 6 months in a focused sprint. You cut your spending, sell some clutter, and automate your savings. It isn't easy, but you're laser focused. At the end of it, you have between $10,000 or $15,000, or whatever number it is, sitting in that high yield savings account. It's separate, it's safe, it's ready. The very next day, nothing has changed, but everything is different. You go back to investing, but now it's with a sense of calm you've never felt before. The stock market drops 15%. Instead of panicking, you shrug and maybe even see it as a buying opportunity because your personal security is totally separate from the market's moves. Your transmission fails, costing you $3,000. It's annoying, sure, but it's not a crisis. You calmly transfer money from your freedom fund to get the car fixed and make a plan to build the fund back up. Your long term investments are never touched, they keep growing, compounding, and building your future, completely insulated from the drama. This is the transformation. Life with a safety net isn't about being restricted. It's about being liberated. It's the difference between playing defense and playing offense. Without a net, you're always reacting to crisis. With a net, you can finally go on the offense. You have the power to negotiate a better salary because you're not terrified of getting fired. You have the freedom to leave a job that you hate, to start a business that you love, something that you've been dreaming of. You can make a clear headed decision during a crisis because the panic of how will I pay for this is gone. Building an emergency fund is the single most powerful act of financial self care that you can take. It's telling yourself that your present security is just as important as your future wealth. This is the move that lets you stop being a fragile investor and become a truly resilient long term wealth builder. All right, let's bring it home. The core message is simple. The idea that you can just use your investment portfolio as a safety net is a dangerous myth. It forces you to sell at the worst time, hits you with taxes and penalties, and messes with your head. So you can't be a patient investor. The solution is to build a true financial fortress before you go on the attack with investing. That fortress is a dedicated freedom fund, and you build it in 3 steps. Calculate your survival number, figure out 3 to 6 months of your bare bones living expenses, choose your vault, open a separate FDIC insured high yield savings account, keep this money safe and liquid, never invested. Build your fund with automation and intensity. Pay yourself first with automatic transfers and go on an all out sprint to find extra cash and hit your goal fast. This isn't a life sentence of savings, it's a shot focused projects that builds the foundation of lifetime of successful investing. Though extremely short, very expensive. But it's a clean shot though. Once that foundation is solid, you can and should invest with total confidence. Your task today isn't to feel overwhelmed, it's just to take the very step first. If you do nothing else after watching this show, open a new browser tab, find a high interest yield savings account, open it, then calculate your savings number. That's it. Take control of your money. It isn't about one giant leap, it's about small, steady steps in the right direction. This is the first and most important one. Just open up the account. Take the money you were going to spend wasting it at the club and drop it into that account. Take the money you were going to spend wasting it on that date and drop it into the account. Now, if tonight's show helped clear things up for you, make sure that you subscribe for more straightforward financial guidance because this is how you build real lasting wealth, not go take that first step without forgetting that tomorrow we're going to have more information about this. And we're going to be building you up with more knowledge that you can use to make yourself very successful. So, with the knowledge and confidence that I've given you today, now's the time to take the first set of steps that you need to go and build your emergency funds. I want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. And for the fellas, I give you guys the information that you need to make yourselves higher value men. So take this information and use it because as you improve your financial life, your personal life will become easier to manage. When you start making better decisions in your personal life, your financial life will also be easier to manage. Ladies, this information is not just for the fellas. Y'all can take this information and help yourselves become higher value women as well. I strongly encourage you to utilize this information to change the things that you don't like about your life so that you can be more satisfied with the life that you lead. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys.
Chase validation, now I validate myself. That's my personal command. I'm not mounted on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.